And I can't tell you how many times people have walked into my office and have sat down and said, I've been dealing with this debt for 5 years, 8 years, 10 years. And anxiety obviously can be a big problem, thank you, when carrying debt. And people will sit down literally in our meeting room and it'll all start to come out. They've been struggling for years to solve their debt. They've cashed out investments, they've taken on a second mortgage, and they're still stressed out and still dealing with debt. So a lot of anxiety that can come with that. There is certainly, if you look in our society today, there has been a great degradation of understanding our finances over the last even 30, 40 years, from when I was a kid to where we are now, and it's continuing to wane. You know, when I was a kid, and Elka and I talked about this, banking was done a lot differently, right? My dad would come home with the paycheck at, lunch on a Friday, give it to my mom, and my mom and I would go and stand in line with all the other mothers, not to be sexist, that's how it was in the day. And the paycheck would go into the bank account, and a little bit would be moved over into a spending account or a checking account. My mom would have to take a little bit of money out for the weekend, because if she didn't have it in her jeans, she wasn't spending it. We didn't have debit cards. If you weren't at the bank on a Friday afternoon by 4 o'clock and you didn't have money in your jeans, you weren't spending your money over the weekend. We were separated from our money a little bit more. And therefore, we just tend to save more. Now, what do? We run around with our debit card. We access our money 24/7. Heck, you don't even need a debit card anymore. You can just tap your phone at the till, right? We no longer handle our money, generally speaking, as a society. It just flows. We're just a conduit where money comes in and money goes out. We never get our hands on it. So the saving rates of Canadians has certainly plummeted, and the way we use money and we use credit has increased. What is the true cost of debt? What is inflation? These are things that we typically don't know nowadays. When I meet with a client, I sit down and they say, I have $30,000 worth of credit card debt. I say, yes, you do. That's correct. But you have more than that. You don't know how much debt you have until you've paid it off. What did it cost you to pay off that debt? You see, debt is kind of, I always like to say, it's living and breathing, right? Debt is always trying to grow because it has interest attached to it. And in order to keep that debt amount down, we have to throw money on top of it just to keep the debt sort of at bay. It's kind of like fighting a fire with a garden hose. Right? But we don't really, when making a financial purchase these days, we're financing a lot of things. We're financing homes for 30 years. You can finance a car for 10 years now. Did you know that? A depreciating asset, if you even want to call it an asset, we can finance it for 10 years. But we're not taking into account the true cost of financing items and financing our life, mortgaging the future for today. Inflation.